Well, JP Morgan has swiftly announced that it will no longer list South African bonds in its emerging market bond indices. To discuss the latest, let's be joined by Lesiba Mothata, Chief Economist from Investment Solutions. Thank you for being with us. So we were already in junk with S&P, but a lot of people are saying it's quite significant when two of the rating agencies have us in junk. Why is that?
Because when corporates, big banks, namely Citibank, JP Morgan, Vanguard, etc., when they create these indices, they're very specific in terms of what type of ratings they want in the index, what type of liquidity in that bond market, what size, all those coming together to create the inclusion of a particular country in those indices. SA got included largely because of its investment grade, its liquid markets, and also because it had other open market structure.
So as I understand, some big institutions basically have rules. They cannot invest vulnerable pension money in junk status bonds. So this means that we could have a pullout, and we're seeing JP Morgan already saying that it won't list us. Roughly $49 billion worth of South African bonds are benchmarked on its investment grade only emerging market bond indices. 10 billion rand of debt linked to its global bond index emerging market indices. So suddenly we're going to see a whole lot of announcements like this.
This is problematic. And it will.
How big is this when JP Morgan says, sorry, we're not going to list your bonds?
This is huge. 49 billion rands out of a market cap of about 80 billion is problematic.
Sure.
However, we'll be waiting for Citibank and other banks to follow suit. They're looking at the local component that is issued in rands. And they're actually very specific. They normally say it's when Standard & Poor's and Moody's, one of the two, downgrades. Fitch rarely features there, but needless to say.
Because Fitch is a smaller rating agency.
It's a most smaller rating, and these things have been formulated well in advance. It was fledgling and it was just coming up throughout the years, but for the longest time there have always been Moody's and Standard & Poor's. I'm a little concerned, and my concerns around when Moody's says we'll give you 30 days, up to 90 days, could prove ominous. What if they want to look at this and see whether quality is good enough? I'm not ruling out a 2-notch downgrade, which will put us into junk Power 3.
Oh, yeah, because we've always thought Moody's is more optimistic about South Africa. It rates us higher than the others, but you're saying we could see something quite dramatic.
It is a likelihood. That is no longer a smaller probability in my mind, but this has increased quite substantially. They were scheduled to make a decision today. So they say we'll give you 30 days. That's ominous. They could come with a 2-notch downgrade.
Sure. So this is huge, and everybody's been talking about how terrible junk status is. The rand hardly reacted, though. The JSE down very slightly. Why are we not seeing that reaction?
Because of the peculiarity of our country. When you look at all the other ratings that got put into non-investment grade, in Brazil lately, in Russia a few years ago when oil halved in value, and even much earlier on in history when Mexico had the tequila crisis. And Brazil, even earlier that time, had a banking crisis. When you compare the economic outcome then and what is happening in SA, they're actually not quite consistent. This SA outcome is more induced internally, and there aren't forces that are forcing us to actually be here. We're self-inducing it ourselves. Now, when you look at...
Which is even worse.
but the key here is that with all these other countries at that time when they were downgraded, they did not have fiscal policy in their hands. They lost fiscal policy. That means they weren't able to hike taxes and respond. Notwithstanding that, they had a banking system that was weak and collapsing. So what's saving SA at this point in time, and investors are giving SA the benefit of the doubt, as expressed in the market moves. I'm particularly surprised at the bond market performance. It actually declined below 9% on the 10-year note, which is quite surprising. Investors are giving SA the benefit of the doubt because of its institutions.
Let's clarify this, because rating agencies guide investors. They choose to trust the rating agencies, but they don't have to. They could deal with us in a way that ignores that junk status. Although we do have that problem when they have to pull out, maybe if Moody's downgrades. But are you saying this whole picture may not be that bad if investors choose to make their own choices?
Here's an interesting word.
And they do know about us, which I guess helps. They know a lot about South Africa's peculiarities, like you say.
Here's the word, fallen angel, okay? Think back 08, corporates in Europe, strong balance sheet, strong business models, but got downgraded. They were referred to as havens angels that fell into non-investment grade. But their models are still strong. In SA, if you compare that and you put the same analysis here, we still have institutions that work. Admittedly, that on the National Treasury needs to be now re-demonstrated. But because strong capitalized banking system, you can't just forgo SA when you make an investment choice. And for that reason, investors say, well, this is a fallen angel. Okay, and we ought to be buying bonds if they go higher. Some of the brokers would say if they see the 10-year note go to 9.5, they'll be buying a truckload.
Okay, this is incredible. And I was thinking about it this week with the banks. So sad, because we have some of the most innovative banks in the world, a very strong banking index. So what you're saying is investors will actually look at these things on the merit. Do you agree with me, though, that the language has become very frank? And I guess it enforces what you're saying, that these are our own problems. Fitch talking about Pravin Gordhan and the focus on SOEs and that they may be scuppered. Does this mean they don't trust the new finance minister? They're also even suggesting that maybe that cabinet reshuffle was about pushing the nuclear deal through.
Yeah, well, those are the concerns which they have explicitly put out. And it is up to how...
It's more explicit, I guess, than it ever has been.
A lot more audible. Well, it is indeed what it is. And when we're in problems like this, it depends on how we deal with the matter. It's up to the new authorities to define precisely whether that is true or not, and they have done. They put out a statement, and in there, I took comfort. They're conceding to what is happening and say, well, we will work together with business and labor to make sure that we continue on the path that was set out in the February budget 2017. This is important. I do think that we need to remember that they have repeated this point since they came in office, the new authorities. That is what they would have said. We remain on the path of the February budget as put out. And that, I think, is critical. That determines on how we end the year. Because remember, once you open this door of ratings, it's not only when they decide to do it now. They can come back 3 months later. They can do it 6 months later, and you see yourself slide into non-investment grade. So it was happening in Europe during a sovereign financial crisis. You see it just really come very quickly. So I think all these statements that are coming from the Treasury are making sure that, yes, it's one step down, but it got to stop there. And we need to actually make sure that we turn this around, because it can be turned.
Okay, so let's finalize. What you're saying basically is, if we do the right things and show the rating agencies we're not going to get deeper into a mire of debt that we can't get out of, if we continue on that stable path, even if we're in junk, maybe it'll be okay.
However, it's undesired, because the cost of debt will inevitably go up. Because this could prove inflationary. Okay,
so that has to happen.
We have to reform. We have to do structural reform as understood. We have to make sure that we respond to the state-owned enterprises. There's more than 700 of them. There's some that are strategic and we ought to keep in the state, but clearly the others that we can have a conversation about. Not just talk about a wholesale privatization, but some reconfiguration that includes cooperation between business and labor, etc., that can be conjured up. I think it's top of mind. It requires a response to that end.
Can we do this? Final question. all without Pravin Gordhan, his deputy, the darlings which some are resentful about of the rating agencies?
Can we do without rating agencies?
No, without Pravin Gordhan and what they were doing, their leadership of the Treasury.
You see, their leadership was...
Can Malusi Gigaba prove himself and appease the rating agencies?
Yeah, so the National Treasury is a machine that works without individuals. We see it when we go to these lockups during the budget. The DG doesn't need to be there, nor the minister needs to be there. But the quality of those that come under them, in fact, they come into the room quoting page numbers of what was written in that policy document. All I'm saying is that there's depth in the Treasury. I am concerned, however, about one point. They should not overlook the incumbents. It's time now to lift them up, to plug the hole of some of these sentiments. It ought to happen. In fact, that must happen.
All right. Thank you for your analysis tonight. Lesiba Mothata from Investment Solutions.
Thank you.